Most of my audio experiments require a lot of effort and a lot of time for basically zero payoff. This experiment in reamping is no different. Basically because I'm an idiot. Probably. Uh-oh. It might be good.
I think it's peaking. I sort of don't care. Does anyone remember why I did this?
I want to know what happens if you take a reamped guitar signal and pump that through an amplifier again, and then you pump that through an amplifier, and then you pump that through an amplifier, and basically reamp a signal 10 times. Just out of curiosity, it might be good. Reamping is a process where you could record a dry guitar signal into your DAW, and then after the fact, pump that signal back through various amplifiers to get the perfect tone. There are loads of tutorials online about how to get great results from reamping from people who've been doing it much longer than me with much nicer amplifiers. So if you want to go learn about reamping, I would encourage you to do that. That is not what we're doing today. We are doing something much, much sillier. A normal signal flow is something like this. You take your guitarist and you plug the guitar straight into a DI box. There are then two outputs. You can have a send going to the guitar amp that they hear. You can also send the dry signal out of the DI box into your recording interface. You can then take that dry signal you've recorded into your DAW and you can output that into any number of fancy and probably expensive guitar amps, and then you can spend as much time as you want trying different amp head and cabinet combos, combinations of amps, or microphone combinations, or frankly, whatever you want to do. What we are doing today is taking that dry signal out of our DAW and into an amplifier, and then we are recording it. We are then taking that signal, pumping that through an amplifier and recording that. We are then taking that signal, pumping it through an amplifier and recording that. And we are doing this a total of 10 times. Why 10? Because I thought 100 would be a really funny number, but then I started doing it and I got really, really bored around take 7. So we're doing it 10 times. So I need to record some guitar parts then. So I guess I need to write a song. That's something I can do. Yeah, probably. Guitar parts have been recorded. I now need to work out the signal routing and then plug everything in. The microphones we're using today have been provided by SE Electronics. Thank you very much, SE Electronics. You guys are awesome. We are using the V7X dynamic microphone, and this is going to be quite close to the grill of our amplifier. And then slightly further away from the amplifier, we are using the VR2 ribbon microphone. And we are using the Guitar RF reflection filter in order to minimize room noise, basically, and reflections, because this is a very silly idea. And we want to make sure that whilst it's silly, we're still doing it with a degree of seriosity. Yeah? You can invent any words you like, you know. That's the thing about language. So although we are recording with 2 microphones, it is the dynamic microphone that we are going to be routing back into itself. This ribbon microphone is mostly here because I haven't owned a ribbon microphone before, and I want to try it out. Yeah. Something that you'll work out about me pretty soon is that I'm not like a big amplifier guy. I don't really have amplifiers. I've been using Guitar for ages, and you know what? It really works. And if I ever need to perform, I use a Line 6 HD pod. Like, it works for me. Reamping is something that's done by a lot of people that collect guitar amps and have a lot of stuff to play with, which I don't, which is why today we're using the Boss Street Cube. It's not a cube, it's like a wedge. Some sort of rhombus, perhaps? Not sure. Definitely not a cube. It's a digital modelling amp for buskers, and is absolutely not the sort of thing that you would ever want to reamp. But for the purposes of today, it will do just fine, probably. I shouldn't have been surprised that I ran into feedback almost immediately, and obviously I'm pumping a signal through a speaker that is attached to the microphone that is pointed at that speaker, so of course I got a feedback loop. Obviously, it just didn't occur to me in the moment that that was a thing that could happen. Basically because I'm an idiot, and it took me ages to work out in the settings for the Focusrite audio interface, you can just turn off monitoring. I learned that today. That was something new that I learned. So I'm plugged in and I'm ready to record Reamp number 1. Now I need to solo some channels and mute some other channels on Cubase, do the whole thing again. Number 2, again, fine. Rinse and repeat. It was around Reamp number 4 where interesting stuff started to happen. The first couple times we do it, the signal just gets fuzzier. I would say the second Reamp just sounds like a guitar through a fuzz pedal with like a lot of background noise. Number 3, more so. Reamp number 4 is where we start to get some interesting stuff happening. There's this really weird bit where the signal just sort of drops in amplitude. I'm not a scientician. I don't really know what's going on here. I've got to assume it's something to do with phase, you know, sciencey stuff like phase, I guess. As expected, the more times I reamp the signal, the more noise there is. And once we get to number 10, under all the fuzzy crap, there's like a weirdly sort of pure kind of synth tone, which I would love to isolate if I can. So we have our audio up here. It's just the ribbon mic because I feel like the pitch was purer through the ribbon mic. It's a bit on the quiet side, isn't it? But that's fine. So we're going to create a sampler track, and we're going to drag and drop this audio here. What the sampler track does is it loads in the entire audio recording. So this is a long piece of audio, but that's fine because we can press this button to trim it. And I think we need to normalize the volume a little bit. So we're just going to bring that gain up. Lovely. After a considerable amount of faff, I have a sampler instrument that I quite like. I had a lot of issues with the pitching, making sure that it actually sounded like it was part of the other guitars that are going on. But this is what we got. And I've added in a little bit of frequency, well, quite a lot of frequency, actually. I've compressed it as well. I think it's peaking. I sort of don't care. There's a flanger on it and a delay. This is what we have. And it matches up with the other guitars quite nicely. But that's not all I've done. I have gone through the various iterations of the tracks as they were recorded, and I've picked out these red bits. These red bits are samples from the various reamping projects, and I've added them in here just to add a bit of flavour, essentially. And a lot of the time, they're just adding noise in the background.
I'm going to do a separate video which explains this track, where the different elements came from, which bit of which reamp I've used when and how, and the EQ and the mix and things of this nature. That's going to be a separate video. I will put it in the description of this video. It might even be linked on screen. I don't know. But yeah, if you want to go watch that, you can do that. And if not, I'm just going to play the track. Yeah? Cool.
Quite often I have an idea and I just want to try that idea out, see where it takes me, and sometimes I don't learn anything along the way beyond what happens when I try this thing out. And I think it's okay to mess around with things and not necessarily have a lesson at the end of it. The point is you tried something. Making this video has reinforced two beliefs that I have about art and the process of art, any creative endeavor. I really think that all good art has to exist, at least partially, in the real world, in the physical, tangible world. If I'm working in Cubase, for example, I will always try to add something real to the piece, whether that's playing a guitar. If it doesn't have guitar in it, can I add in like some percussion that I play with my hands? Can I route a signal through some guitar pedals? Just in some way bring the piece into the real world. It doesn't have to be a lot, but I really believe you have to do at least a little bit of that to make something really great. The second thing I really believe is that we've lost the art of iteration. The idea of taking something and doing it a bunch of times and then releasing the best one. If nothing else, it's practice, right? You don't, as a teenager, pick up a pen, draw a cartoon, and that's the finished product. No, you practice. You practice doing the same thing again and again and again. And what we forget is that even as we get older, even as we become practicing professional creative people, we still need to do that. We still need to go through the process of trying it out a bunch of times before we get a version that we're actually happy with. So I really believe that about iteration, and there's a kind of abstract version of iteration that applies to what we've done today, right? I've taken the same signal and I've pumped it through the same amplifier a bunch of times. I've iterated this thing upon itself. Upon itself? Into itself? I don't know. In doing that, we've kind of let the art itself take on new meaning. If you take the sounds that we recorded today and just listen to them in isolation, you'd get a headache. Believe me. But by carefully selecting samples and resampling them into the project, we've created something new that wouldn't have existed if the track hadn't already existed. So this piece of music has developed because of elements that existed inside of this piece of music. So we're letting the thing build on itself. Or maybe it just sounds bad. That's also fine because we tried, and that's the important thing. I think the most important thing when trying to do like a salient point at the end of the video, the most important thing is to just be a little bit smug. And I've done that. You're welcome.